Morning, everybody. I'm Melissa Nielsen with Waldorf Essentials, and today I am talking about the changes that happen at 9. So we've been doing this series. We did the changes that happen at 3, changes that happen at 6. Today we're going to talk about the changes that happen at 9. These are probably the changes that you hear about the most in the Waldorf world. You hear about the 6-year-old change too, 6, 7 change, but often it's the 9-year-old change that gets the most because it really is the one that tends to stop us in our tracks the most as parents. I think that the 9-year-old change can be pretty jarring for children as much as it is for moms and or parents, not just moms, dads too. Dads go, what the heck happened to this kid? This is a time when I see if your child, often we sort of, temperament's not set in stone yet, but you kind of have an idea usually when they're little. Some people say they flip temperaments. I don't really see that as much as I see temperaments deepening, temperaments strengthening. Where I see the temperaments flipping is if we have a child that's got trauma, and then they will do, especially that trauma that happens around the age of 9, they will do some flipping. In fact, Eleanor was very sanguine, all of her early childhood. And the 9-year change was very hard for her. She had a lot of struggles with her birth father around that time, and it really started her down like a place of depression. So she went from being sanguine to more sanguine melancholy. And even today, I would say she's sanguine melancholy, where between 9 and probably 15, I would have said she was melancholy sanguine. So you see a lot of changes that happen at 9 that really affect how they're going from here up. They really need you to be on your game, really on your game. They're very much into justice at this point, so they really want to make sure that you know your stuff. So when it comes to teaching school, when it comes to discipline, you need to have good, firm boundaries because they're going to be trying to push them. There's a really good lecture by Steiner called Education as a Force for Social Change that I think is a really good one. That's one of my favorites. I also have a list. We have a set of podcasts on our website at waldorfessentials.com that are all about the 9-year change. So if you go to our site and then under resources, podcasts, and there's a whole section on the 9-year change, and we have a whole bunch of books listed there. So we'll go ahead and list the link to that in the comments so that you have access to that. There's a lot of books listed there. There's one called Encountering the Self by Herman Kopke that I think is really good. It's kind of the Waldorf go-to book for parents that we suggest a lot. It's just will help you maybe have a little more empathy for them. They're going through a time, again, they've been doing this separation thing bit by bit since they were little, and this is just another place in that. And we see kids that were never afraid before, maybe they're afraid now. We also see kids that maybe never give you any trouble, might give you some trouble now. Or it's just, it totally depends on the child, but it's definitely within the realm. You could have a child that is much more weepy than they usually are, much more bossy than they usually are, really trying to figure out those boundaries. And so you might be seeing behavioral issues with them for the first time, or for the first time since they went through the 6-year change. So heaven help you if you have several children that are going through these spots every 3 years. It might feel very frustrating for you as a parent, but it does get better. It totally gets better as they get older. So with the changes at 9, like I said, I think that you really want to make sure that you're in a good emotional place for those changes. When you have struggles and trauma going on in their lives around that time, just be aware. It kind of, for me, when we were going through that, it caught me off guard because my older boys had already gone through the 9-year change. So it caught me off guard when Eleanor was going through it, and it really affected her. It really jarred her life in such a huge way. And so I wasn't prepared for that. So if you are going through something, being prepared for it, I think, is paramount, so that you can sort of catch them when they fall and not be reacting and trying to figure that piece out. But, definitely being aware of these changes that are coming is huge for you. So they usually start around 8.5 or so. Um, that's about where I usually see them start, and they can go to about 9.5. And if you have a child that's maybe got some spectrum stuff going on, they might go a little bit longer than that. So Harry went later into it and stayed a little bit longer into it. He stayed into it. He was finishing up the 9-year change as Jacob was coming into the 9-year change. It was lots of fun at my house. And so there, you want to be mindful of that they sometimes have a little bit of a delay when it comes to those changes. And again, really a lot of it is, it's very hard for a lot of moms that have been attached moms all this time. Maybe they got through those changes at 6 without too much trouble, and then here they are at 9, and you're trying to use the same discipline tactics or the same positive parenting tactics that you have been all this time, and they may not be working with a 9-year-old. And a lot of that is they really just need you to be on your game. They need you to be firm when you say you're going to be firm. And they need you to follow through. And if you don't follow through, they will absolutely be on you about the fact that you didn't follow through, which can, I know, be very frustrating as a parent. But really, I want you to be sort of having that peace in mind that you really need to be working, if you're not already, working on your follow through. They will, because they're like I said, they're looking for justice. They're really looking for they're not looking for opportunities for you to fail, but they're seeing this person that in their eyes used to be perfect and all of a sudden you're not. And that's not because of anything you've done. That's just because their eyes are getting more and more open. Remember, we said at 6 they were leaving Eden, and it's like their eyes are getting more and more open the more they leave, the more they step away. So you may have a 9-year-old that is like intensely independent, wanting to spend more time away from you, and then at the same time, the same day, can't stop hugging you, or really still wants to hold your hand, or all of those things that that you might see from a child that seems secure but not insecure, or but not secure, and then it's sort of back and forth and back and forth. You definitely see that the changes that happen at 9. You might start to see some of the trickster energy that comes around age 10. Later in the 9th year, Sam is like super chill child. I think we could count we don't need all of our fingers on one hand to count his tantrums. But he went through the 9-year change. That wasn't a big deal. But you could totally see the trickster energy. It was like the wheels were turning when he was getting close to 10. And he's going to be 11 on Wednesday, and which is kind of mind-blowing for me, but that energy within him is ramping up even more. So, and we'll talk about the changes at 12 next week, but these changes at 9 are pretty significant changes, and you do need to sort of pay attention to the changes that might be happening in their temperament. Like I said, I don't see them make a complete flip like some people say. That's from my personal experience and from watching very many other children. I don't see them make a flip like that. But what I do see is that what you already had in mind might get seeded, or if you didn't have anything in mind and you kind of couldn't figure that out, then you might start to see it kind of anchor in. And it does affect them, as they're moving forward. And so now's the time to really help them understand themselves. And if you've got some girls that might be developing, which is really scary, their kids are developing so much earlier today than they were when I was a kid. And so and when we were younger, all of us, I think that I sort of just made myself sound like I was 400, but it does sort of seem crazy how fast people are developing now. And a lot of us are, being more mindful of that. A lot of us are feeding our children better than we were fed. We're, being careful about what goes into their body and what they're drinking and all of those things. And so those changes tend to happen less among parents that are really understanding nutrition, but they're still there. And so, be mindful of those. When Ellie was really sick when she was 9, she had, it was major sickness. She had one period, and then she didn't have any more until she was 11 or 12. And so that was I was freaked out. Oh my gosh. But so be mindful of those things, and just sort of be aware that that if you haven't had, you don't want to have that talk necessarily, because I think that in a lot of cases 9 is still too early, but listen for them and listen for their cues, and sort of see where you need to sort of insert yourself and just be very present. I think that if you've got, if they're definitely doing that walk away thing, the step away, and they're doing a lot more independent things with friends, you still want to be around. You still want to be holding the space with them. You still want to be knowing their friends very well. I always prefer to have play dates at my house so that I can sort of be there, and you're not hovering, but you've got ears, so use them and just sort of pay attention to what's going on, what they're talking about, and you can sort of see the shifts and the changes in them that happen around 9. And just sort of, like I said, be aware. Don't be scared about those changes. Definitely, if this is your oldest child, you might be freaking out a little bit. I can remember when I was there. But there's so much beauty that comes from these changes. And even though it can be a very tumultuous time, it can also be a very beautiful time. If you can help them understand, hey, I know that's really hard for you right now. Now, I don't sit down and I don't explain to them, you're going through the 9-year change. Let's talk about this. I don't explain anything like that. Not at all. But I definitely make them, because I'm aware and I'm seeing that they're struggling, I make them aware that I'm here and I'm present and I'm available. And I know you've got anger sometimes and you don't know why you're angry, or you're scared sometimes, you don't know why you're scared. Mom is here. You are welcome to come and be with me. I mean, I think I had all the kids that had graduated out of the family bed at some point during the 9-year change decided they need to come and snuggle with me for a couple of months. And it wasn't like every night, but it was definitely, there were more nightmares that were happening because of these changes. And some kids don't have any of these issues at all. Like Sam sailed through the 9-year change. But all of my other children had some sort of trauma or trouble, struggles that happened during that time, whether they be external or internal. And so just be aware of what's going on around you. Be aware of your relationship with your partner, your relationship with other people, because they are paying attention. They are majorly paying attention right now. They want to, they're looking at you. You've gone from being this person that knows everything to them to they're realizing that you might not know everything, and they want to know that you really do know the things that you say you know. And so they're listening and they're watching you. They want to examine a lot of the things that you say. And so be willing, be open when they ask you questions. Give them, they need good answers. And this is a point where you can start giving more scientific answers. If you've got a child that wants to know why the sun sets, there's a great book by Eugene Schwartz called Why the Setting Sun Turns Red. That's perfect before this age. 7, 8 is probably the oldest. Even 8-year-olds might be like, I don't believe this stuff. But 7 and under, 6 and under, really, that's a great book for them. But when you're talking about these older kids, there's a transition when they're 7 and 8 years old. But now at about 9, they're really ready for some deeper work. That doesn't mean you should, start to explain the law of thermodynamics to them, but you could definitely give them some more pieces, some more meat that they're asking for, and do it still in a very age-appropriate way, but do it in a way that they really realize, hey, she knows what she's doing. This is real science, or this is real stuff, and they can handle a little bit more history. I am still very careful about graphics and gore when it comes to our world history, and so I might describe a war, but I might not describe a battle completely. You want to be careful because they are so sort of fragile as they're moving into this new space. Be careful about what they're seeing. Be careful about what they're listening to. You're still very careful about any movies they want to watch at this point. Definitely would not do a PG-13 for a 9-year-old, especially if it was something you hadn't seen before already. So please be mindful of those things, and just make sure that your heart is open to them. They might be super frustrating to you. You might do more yelling when they're at the stage than you did when they were 6, and you're way frustrated because you're thinking, what the heck? Why are we having this fight? But really, it's a call for your patience, and I know that I say that, and I don't have a kid that's 9 right now, but I'm telling you, it's a refining process for you as a mom, and it's a refining process for them. So if you sort of think of yourself as getting refined and them as being built up, and really start to understand that and stick with that, then I think your parenting will go a long way, and you'll feel really good about it. Again, I think my favorite Steiner work would be Education as a Force for Social Change. It'll help you understand the difference between authority and authoritative and sort of what the 9-year-old needs. I would say Kingdom of Childhood is a really good one. And like I said, Encountering the Self by Herman Kopke is good. Let me look at my list really quick, so I was trying to remember if I missed anything. No, just other Steiner pieces. Balance in Teaching is educational lectures are always really good when it comes to understanding what the children are going through. But definitely those top two lectures, Education as a Force for Social Change and Kingdom of Childhood, and then Encountering the Self. And like I said, we have 2 different audios on the 9-Year Change on our website that I think are pretty darn good. We talk a lot about the different aspects. Is there a link? Yes, I'm going to post on our website. Leanna is asking, is there a link on our website? If you go to waldorfessentials.com, resources, podcasts, and then it's under there at the 9-Year Change. So I'm going to go ahead and put that link here in the thread when I'm done talking to you so that you have it. And those of you who are watching on YouTube on the download, we'll go ahead and put it in the comments there as well. So if you guys have any questions, the 9-Year Change is, I've been through it 4 times, been through it 4 times. I got 1 left to go through it. It's not as scary once you are armed, and it's not as frustrating once you're armed. Once you sort of know what's coming, then it's a lot easier to sort of forge ahead and not feel so worried and so frustrated. They're going to be questioning you in ways that they've never questioned you. That's where, Steiner talks about you need to give the young child something to imitate, so you need to be worthy of that imitation. Well, you should still be worthy of that. You need to continue to be worthy of that space for them because they are really looking to you. So that's where I say, if you're having struggles with your partner, struggles within your family, those kids are looking at how you're dealing with those things. Struggles with partner are really hard. I still would say do not fight, not argue in front of your children. But your 9-year-old is going to know if there's something going on. So, work to have those relationships be good and strong. Work to feel like that you can be impeccable with your word. Don't make promises you can't keep. Don't say things that aren't true. You have to be really careful with kids around this age because they're like I said, they're really watching you. So anyways, that's what I have for you today. Hopefully that was a little helpful when it comes to the 9-Year Change. There is so much that goes on with this. Like I said, and we've covered it on our podcast, so I encourage you to go and listen to those. I think they're pretty darn good. We talk about children that have gone through trauma, children that have struggles with regards to like my second son, when he was going through the 9-Year Change, he because my ex-husband would say things like, I love you small, he willed himself to not grow for 2 years. And I remember looking at him in the 9-Year Change going, holy crap, what the heck has gone on here? And he didn't lose any teeth, didn't get any haircuts, didn't grow an inch in this time period. And so we really have to be very careful about what we're willing onto them at that age. And their little souls take every bit of it in, and they're judging everything. And so we really need to be very careful. So there's definitely more insights, like I said, on this podcast, and I will link them here. And if you have questions, like I said, please ask. You can ask them here in the thread. You can send me a PM. If you've got a 9-year-old, my heart goes out to you. If you're struggling through those, if you're struggling through a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old at the same time, my heart still goes out to you. Next week we'll talk about the changes that happen at 12. They're a little different and a little more empowering, not so much sadness generally, but 12 and 15 and 18 are next. So hope you have a good day and a good week. Bye now.